thank you all for coming to number 3. I'm going to say again that my name is Jamie McDougall, and I am a psychologist, and I've been working with deaf people for over 40 years. My native language is ASL, and as you know, I was raised by deaf parents in Ottawa, Ontario. But most of all, I'm proud to say that, like you, I am a senior. I'm here today to give you the third of a series of presentations on the topic of mental health, wellness, mental health and wellness for the deaf. And there's going to be a special focus once again with deaf seniors. As you remember, in the first presentation, I focused on the lived experience of seniors in general and on the special aspects of being a deaf senior. I went over and reviewed some ideas about aging in other societies with an emphasis on the term elder, meaning an older person that deserves respect for the lives that they have lived, for their experience, and for their wisdom. I offered some ideas about mental health and wellness for deaf seniors, and I stressed that I don't have any easy solutions to all of the issues in mental health and wellness for deaf seniors. There's a lot that we do not understand about mental health in general, and about feeling good or feeling bad, or what we call wellness. We know that deaf seniors need special services that are communication rich and deaf friendly. And we know that it's important for deaf seniors to help each other. Another reality that I'll mention again is the early trauma that many deaf people suffered in their early education, where they may have been deprived of their language and communication. We know that the pain from that experience can stay with you for all of your lives. That's a reality for many deaf seniors, but we also know that life can be happy and full of joy most of the time. Getting old can present many challenges for physical as well as mental health. There can be problems in mobility, with fatigue, problems thinking, sometimes even confusion, loss of memory. Can be short-term memory or long-term memory. Could be loss of a partner, family, friends. That can all be very stressful as we get older. Also, the loss of independence. Having to move into a residence can have special challenges as well as great benefits. It can be financial problems, loneliness, depression, and many other emotions and feelings that at times can be difficult to deal with. But I want to stress that most of the time I know that deaf seniors enjoy life fully. They're a joy to be around. But at times, deaf seniors, like hearing seniors, can suffer from serious mental health issues, even mental illnesses. Again, like depression, anxiety, mood disorders, eating disorders, personality disorders, and many other mental health issues. I'm going to talk today about how professionals can help so that you can be informed and gain some basic understanding of mental health issues and problems. I'm just going to mention some of the professionals again. We can have doctors or physicians who specialize in older people. they're called geriatric specialists. They specialize in being doctors with elders, with seniors. Doctors or physicians that specialize in mental health are called psychiatrists. And we have psychologists, like I am a psychologist. We have psychotherapists, psychologists and others who try to help people. Social workers, counselors, many other frontline workers that work with all seniors, including deaf seniors. All of these people can help. So what I'm going to try to talk about today is give you some basic information about therapy, about psychotherapy, something called mindfulness, narrative therapy, and solution-focused brief therapy. There are a lot of other approaches, but I'm going to concentrate on these for this presentation. I'll mention also there's a basic difference between giving individual therapy and doing group therapy. The psychologist, the counselor, the social worker can sit down with an individual over a long period of time. Might be half an hour, might be an hour. And they will discuss various mental health and wellness issues. But they can also do this in groups. Often people that have similar problems get together, and the counselor, the psychologist, or the doctor would lead a discussion of groups of people involving mental health and wellness. Each person puts forward their own ideas, their own problems, and they listen and pay attention to what other people are saying and signing. In many cases, the group approach is quite efficient, and it really works well. It's important to note that people who give therapy must be qualified. They must belong to what in Ontario we call a professional college. These are colleges that are regulated by the laws here in Ontario. Anyone who gives therapy must belong to one of these colleges. And when they belong to the college, they would receive special training over a long period of time in school, and they have special degrees. Okay, so I'd like to start with something called mindfulness. It's an approach that's been around for a long time, but it's become quite popular in the last few years. And it's an approach to therapy that concentrates and focuses on what's happening right now in your life, right now. When you're mindful, you usually carefully observe your own thoughts, your own thinking, your own feelings, but without judging whether your thoughts or feelings are good or bad. You just let yourself think. The idea is to let yourself think about what's going through your mind right now. Don't be judgmental. Don't judge it. Don't react. Just relax and let your thinking flow. A lot of the ideas about mindfulness actually come from long ways away from the East, from India, for example, and goes back to such old ancient religions such as Buddhism or Hinduism. So a lot of what people are doing now is borrowed from ideas that are thousands of years old. In our part of the country, in the West, there's a lot of mindfulness that goes on, for example, with Christianity. or other spiritual or even non-spiritual approaches that involve meditation, sometimes prayer, other kinds of relaxation activities. There's also something that's been done called meditation, and maybe you've heard of yoga exercises, physical and mental exercises and mental and meditation that involve relaxation. There are many other techniques like this that do involve relaxation, focusing your mind, trying to relax, trying not to judge yourself, letting the thoughts just flow easily. It's an interesting approach, especially for deaf people, because it involves relaxation, not being judgmental, involves letting your thoughts go, and it seems to lend itself too easily to sign language communication. Another form of therapy that we think is interesting for deaf people is something called narrative therapy. It's all about what is your story. The narrative therapist aims to adopt a kind of a collaborative, working with people approach. Not giving advice all the time, not telling people what to do. So when a person says they have a problem, there's a discussion. Here's what's going on. Let's discuss it back and forth. It's more of a collaborative approach of having a conversation, working together. The therapist and the person receiving the therapy, both of these people are seen as having important information. The therapist is not seen as more important than the person that is receiving the therapy. Everything that everybody says is highly valued. Narrative therapy is a form of psychotherapy that aims to help people identify their own values, their own skills and knowledge. They have to confront whatever problems they have. I think it's an interesting approach for deaf people. Partly because going back to that problem I talked about what happened sometimes in school, in early life, even with families, they often face special barriers that can be helped by narrative therapy. In other words, the whole story of the deaf person, starting with their early life when they were young, going through life, telling their story, that's important to realize that this is an important story for deaf people. All deaf people have a story about themselves. They look at themselves in a certain way. And in narrative therapy, that helps people think about that and develop a positive identity. One interesting element of narrative therapy is called the tree of life. In that, your life is seen as a tree that has roots, deep roots, going back to your early life as a child. Things that happen to you, good things, bad things, and then as you grow, all of the different branches represent different aspects of your life. You grow older, you go to school, maybe you get married, maybe you have a family, you have children, you work, you have employment. Sometimes good things happen to you, sometimes bad things. Life is like the tree of life, and narrative therapy is an interesting approach. Although we should say that not every therapist uses this approach. It's one form of therapy that I think is quite interesting for deaf people because it concentrates on the story of your life. Another approach that we think is interesting for deaf people is called solution-focused brief therapy. This type of therapy focuses on solutions, not problems. Focuses on direct intervention. In brief therapy, the therapist works proactively helps the client right now to treat mental health problems in a very quick way, in the here and the now. Rather than trying to analyze all the reasons for the problems, going back into history, the primary approach of the brief therapy is to help the person look at the problems they have right now, look at the big picture, offer some practical solutions so that you can get results and solve problems right now. Emphasis, there are many ways to solve your problems, not just one way. Many paths to achieving a solution. Again, it concentrates on solving the problem now, not necessarily going back into the history. So I want to remind you of some of the tips that I gave previously for mental health and well-being. Number one, always feel free to express your thoughts and feelings. We all know that exercise is good. We all know that eating healthy meals is good. Getting enough sleep, although we all know as we get older, sleep is not so easy sometimes. Spending time with loved ones and friends, developing new skills, and just relaxing and enjoying communicating with everybody, including with a doctor or a health professional or people that work with you. One thing that we've developed is what we're calling the Rumball Wellness Wheel. I don't know how well you can see it from there, but it has to do with all different aspects of your life that we think contribute to feeling better and feeling well. What you're working, what occupation you had, feeling inspired by things, spiritual aspect of your life, your emotional aspect, your feelings, nature, what you do outside, facing challenges like playing games, for example, in social situations, physical activity, and of course the most important always seems to be social activity, being with other people, communicating, and just having a good time. So one thing I want to make sure, I've given 3 videos, 3 presentations on mental health, and I've just touched on what mental health is, what wellness is, some of the professionals that can help you, but it's for general education. I've gone over various kinds of mental illness, different types of therapy. Last time we talked about dementia, about Alzheimer's disease. Again, these are just for general information. There's a lot more that we could say in the future. For sure, if you have an issue, if you have a problem, you should consult staff around or a doctor or other professional person. Never try to diagnose yourself. Say, I know I've got this mental problem or something. That's a bad idea. And certainly don't try to diagnose other people. But don't be shy about discussing your issues with staff, with workers, with friends, and always ask questions if you're not sure. These are complicated topics, and we're all learning together. It's not just for mental health issues, but for wellness. You know, again, physical activity, communication, having friends, positive attitudes, all of these things are important, including helping others, spiritual activities. All these things can make you feel better.